They thought he simply walked away. They thought he quit the show at the peak of his success. But what if I told you? The truth behind John Reardon's sudden exit from Hudson and Rex is far deeper. It's far more painful and far more inspiring than anyone ever knew. John Reardon was never the loudest actor in Hollywood. He didn't chase headlines, scandals, or fame. He was quiet, calm, and focused on his craft. But everything changed when he stepped into the role that turned him into a household name, Detective Charlie Hudson, in the hit series Hudson and Rex. Fans instantly connected with his warm personality, sharp screen presence, and emotional honesty. He made viewers believe in loyalty, justice, and the bond between a man and his dog. The show wasn't just entertainment. It became a comfort for millions of people around the world. But then, something strange happened. At the height of the show's success, rumors began to spread. Some said Reardon was unhappy with the script. Others claimed he had left to pursue other projects. Theories multiplied online. Why would someone walk away from a role that made them a star? Why step away when the world finally knew his name? Something didn't make sense, and fans could feel it. What most people didn't know was that John was fighting a silent war. A war not in the headlines or in public view. A war inside himself. Before fame, John Reardon began his journey in Nova Scotia, Canada. He didn't grow up dreaming of Hollywood lights. In fact, he studied biology and even played college football before turning to acting. His road to success was slow and full of rejection. He started with small roles, brief appearances in shows like The Chris Isaak Show and True Calling. Nothing came easy, but he kept going. He had something rare, quiet persistence. Still, even when he faced failure, he did it with a smile. He stayed grounded. No ego, no drama. He valued his privacy, protecting his personal life with quiet strength. He married actress Megan Ory, and together they built a life based on love and loyalty, away from the noise of fame. For John, acting wasn't about stardom. It was about passion. So when Hudson and Rex came along in 2019, it felt like a gift, a chance to connect with audiences on a deeper level. The show grew fast. People loved its emotional tone, uplifting stories, and heartwarming partnership between Hudson and Rex. John didn't just act in the series. He carried it. His performance made the stories real, capturing pain, humor, and courage in every episode. But behind the scenes, something was changing. Bit by bit, fans noticed John becoming less present in interviews. His energy on screen seemed different. Some even said he looked tired. The show continued, the ratings stayed strong, and production moved forward, but the man at the center of it all seemed distant. Something was wrong. The producers never addressed it. The media threw out excuses. Fans kept asking questions, but John said nothing, and that silence spoke louder than any answer. Because sometimes, silence is not a choice. Sometimes silence is protection. A guard against truth too heavy to reveal. The truth? John Reardon was not walking away from fame. He was fighting to stay alive, at a time when his career was shining the brightest. John received a diagnosis that changed everything. A diagnosis he kept hidden from the world. He didn't want pity. He didn't want attention. He didn't want his pain turned into a headline. So he hid it. He continued filming. He pushed through scenes with a smile, even on days when his body was screaming for rest. But as the illness grew, he knew one thing for sure. He could lose his career. He could lose his role. But he refused to lose his life. What forced him to leave Hudson and Rex wasn't ego, conflict, or betrayal. It was survival. And that decision marked the beginning of the most powerful chapter of his story. When John Reardon first heard the word cancer, time stopped. His world did not crash loudly. It did not break with tears and screams. Instead, everything went quiet, cold, still in that moment. Life became fragile, something that could slip away without warning. He sat alone with the news for a long time, trying to understand how this could happen when everything in his life seemed to be going so well. He did not tell many people, not even close friends at first. That is the kind of man he is: private, calm, protective of the people he loves. He did not want anyone to worry. He did not want sympathy. He did not want fans to look at him with sadness. So he made a decision very few people would have the strength to make. He would fight his battle in silence. Every morning, he showed up on the set of Hudson Rex like nothing was wrong. Cameras rolled, and he became Detective Charlie Hudson, the brave, charming hero fans loved. But no one could see what was happening when the cameras stopped. On some days, he would step away to catch his breath. On others, he would hide the pain behind a simple smile. He was not just acting for the show, he was acting to protect his truth. Treatments quietly began. Appointments, tests, blood work, surgery discussions, radiation. These words became part of his life words he never thought he would ever need to understand. He faced long nights filled with fear. Fear of losing his strength, fear of not waking up after surgery, fear of not having enough time. But John had one reason to keep fighting: family. His wife, actress Megan Ory, became his shield, his silent partner in the storm. She stood beside him when the fear became too heavy. She encouraged him to keep going when the pain tried to break him. And more than anything, she reminded him of the one truth stronger than fear: love. Their children, too young to understand what cancer meant, became his light. He would look at them and remember why he had to survive, why he had to win. He did not want them to grow up reading headlines about his illness. He did not want them to see weakness in their father. He wanted them to remember his strength, his courage, his fight. But cancer does not care about dreams. It does not pause for careers. It does not step aside for filming schedules. Soon, the long hours on set began to clash with his health. Filming drained his energy. Emotional scenes pulled at his heart. Some days he simply could not continue. His body was begging for rest. He hid the struggle as long as he could. He did not want to let anyone down, least of all his fans. But his silence came with a heavy cost. People started assuming he had changed, that he was distant. Some even believed he no longer cared about the show. Rumors began to grow online. Yet John remained quiet. He carried their judgment without anger, because only he knew the truth. He was not walking away. He was holding on. There was a moment when he kept private when everything almost ended. During treatment, a complication put his life in real danger. It forced him to face his worst fear. That day, lying in a hospital bed, John Reardon realized something powerful. Survival is not about staying strong every day. Survival is about refusing to give up. No matter how broken you feel, it was in that moment he made the hardest choice of his career. He knew he had to step away from Hudson Rex. For his health, for his family, for his life, but he also knew something else. If people ever learned the truth, he wanted them to see more than a man who suffered. He wanted them to see a man who fought. He did not leave the spotlight because he was weak. He left because he had the courage to choose life over fame. When John Reardon finally made the decision to step away from Hudson Rex, it wasn't made in a boardroom or during a dramatic argument. There were no slammed doors, no shouting matches, no sudden walkout. The truth is far more human and far more heartbreaking. John had reached a point where he could no longer hide the pain. Some days, filming felt like pushing through a storm with no strength left. But no matter how weak he felt, he gave everything he had to the role of Detective Charlie Hudson. He didn't want the show to suffer because of his personal battle. He didn't want fans to worry. So he stayed silent even when that silence hurt him. But those who worked closest to him could feel something was wrong. His co-stars noticed the change first. His eyes looked tired even when he smiled. He spoke less between takes. Some days he would sit alone, quiet and distant, as if he was carrying a weight no one else could see. The crew also began picking up on the signs. He sometimes needed breaks between scenes, not for ego or comfort, but simply to breathe. He fought his illness behind the scenes with quiet bravery, but eventually, his body could no longer keep up with the pace of television for weeks. He struggled with a question that haunted him. Will I lose myself if I walk away? Fame is fragile. One step out of the spotlight and you can disappear forever. John knew this. But he also knew something far more important. What good is success if you lose your life earning it? So one quiet evening, after a long day of filming, John spoke to the producers. There was no drama in his voice, only truth. He explained that he needed time. Time to heal. Time to fight without cameras watching. Time to live. The room went silent. They understood. There were no arguments. No threats. No anger. Instead, there was support, respect, even sadness, because everyone knew what John brought to the show. He wasn't just the lead actor, he was the heart of the series. His calm presence kept the energy steady. His dedication inspired the cast. His kindness made the set feel like family. But now, that family had to let him go. Still, there was a problem. How do you explain his sudden departure to millions of fans without revealing the truth he wanted to keep private? The producers faced a difficult decision. They could not tell the world about his cancer battle. That wasn't their story to share, and John didn't want sympathy or a media circus. So they chose silence. They released simple statements. Words like creative differences, time off, and new direction were used to explain his exit. But these words were not the truth. They were protection. Protection for John, protection for his family. But silence has a cost. The rumors came fast. Some people claimed he left because of a secret feud. Others said he was chasing Hollywood movies. Some even accused the show of firing him. Social media became a storm of false stories and wild theories. Fans felt confused, hurt, betrayed. How could he leave without a real explanation? Only a handful of people knew the real reason, and they kept his secret with loyalty. On set, emotions were heavy. His final day was quiet. There were no speeches, no stage goodbyes. But those who knew the truth shared hugs and tears behind closed doors. The crew gifted him a photo of the cast and Rex, signed with a single message, "Come back when you're ready." When John walked off the set for the last time, he wasn't thinking about fame. He wasn't thinking about his career. He was thinking about his family. He was thinking about survival. He was thinking about the life waiting beyond the studio lights. Yes. John Reardon left Hudson and Rex, but he didn't walk away from acting. He walked toward life, to the world. His exit looked like a mystery. Some called it selfish. Others called it shocking. But those who truly understood called it something else, bravery, because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is choose themselves. For months after leaving Hudson and Rex, John Reardon disappeared from the public eye. No interviews, no new projects, no statements. To the outside world, it looked as if he had vanished. But in reality, he had entered the hardest chapter of his life, the battle for his future. His days no longer began on set. Instead, they began in hospitals. Doctors replaced directors. Needles replaced microphones. Hospital rooms replaced trailers. And instead of memorizing scripts, he memorized appointment schedules. He fought through exhaustion, fear, and pain, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional. Cancer tries to take everything from a person, not just the body, but the spirit. But John refused to give in. There were moments when quitting would have been the easier choice. He felt broken, lost. Some days he could barely stand. Other days he stared at the ceiling in silence, battling thoughts that crawled into his mind like shadows. What if I don't win this fight? What if I never return to acting? What if this is the end? But every time those thoughts tried to break him, he had one answer: no. He would not let cancer decide his future. He would not let fear own his life. He would fight back step by step, day by day, until he found himself again. Recovery wasn't fast. It wasn't clean. It was a slow climb. But life has a way of giving strength in unexpected places. For John, that strength came from the smallest, most powerful moments: quiet evenings with his family, laughter from his children, letters from silent fans who didn't even know what he was going through, but still thanked him for inspiring them. He kept every message. Hope became his medicine, and then finally, after countless treatments, sleepless nights, and battles no camera had ever captured, something changed. His doctors delivered the words he had been waiting for. You're winning. Not finished, not done, not safe forever, but winning. And that word meant everything. John began to heal not just in body, but in spirit. He started going outside again. He enjoyed the sun. He walked without worry. He laughed without fear. Life began to feel like life again, but with healing came another question. What now? He could have stayed silent forever, living in peace away from the world. But he knew his story had power not because he survived, but because he kept going when everything tried to stop him. He did not owe the world an explanation, but he gave them one anyway, not through a press conference or a dramatic announcement, but through quiet honesty. He revealed that stepping away from Hudson and Rex was not a career move, it was a life-saving decision. He shared his cancer battle not for attention, but to remind people of something we often forget. Behind every smile is a story we do not see. Behind every actor is a human being. And behind every strong person is a silent fight. When the truth finally reached the fans, something beautiful happened. There was no anger, no judgment. Only love. Messages poured in not just of support, but of admiration. People called him a fighter, a warrior, a survivor. Many said they had also been battling cancer or knew someone who was. John's story gave them hope. His silence had protected him, but his truth gave others strength. And that became his greatest role, not on screen, but in life. Today, John Reardon is more than an actor. He is a voice of quiet courage. He returned to life with deeper purpose. He spends more time with his family. He chooses projects that matter to him. He values health over fame. He may one day return to Hudson, and Rex and fans still hope for that moment, but whether he does or not, his legacy is already written. Success is not measured by ratings or awards. It is measured by how many times you stand up after life knocks you down. And John Reardon stood up stronger than before. His journey is proof that strength is not the absence of pain. It is the refusal to surrender.